What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Life Inner Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. I'm joined by my co-host, Polish Peter. And guess what? On the Life Inner Show, Peter, just in case you didn't know this, we help people make more, work less, and live better. How you doing, man? Yeah, can you believe it? That's it. That's what we're running with.
Yes, but here's the thing. We are bringing an awesome person that we interviewed a while back because he's coming out with an awesome book. We had the privilege, me and Wojo, to actually look at the book and some really awesome things in there. Yeah. His name is Michalowicz. Michalowicz. Okay, we wrote Profit First, The Pumpkin Plan, and a whole bunch of other books.
Fix This Next. Yep. Yeah, you guys know one of the best business authors out there. Great guy, tons of value to add to the small business owner community. And Peter, he's going to talk about his new book that's coming out in September called Get Different.
Yeah. And cool things. We asked him about the podcast about, how do you actually get different? How does the marketing work? He shared what he calls his dad framework. So I want you guys to listen to that. And one thing I like towards the end of the podcast, he shared some really cool examples of marketing. One about the email. I was like, what?
Yeah, we're going to use that one.
Stuff. That's a very cool little trick. So, but the thing, you got to do it sooner than later, because if everybody starts using it, guess what? He talked about the dear friend line, pretty soon will get used up. So jump on that if you're going to do that marketing.
And that's why you need to listen to this podcast right now. Let's go to the interview right now with Mike Michalowicz. Mike, what's up, buddy? Welcome to Life Inner Show.
Jason, Peter, it's good to be back with you. I appreciate you doing this.
We missed you, man, and I'm so excited to have you back on. And I'll tell you, so the focus, and I'm so excited that we get to do this, is to talk about your upcoming new book that's coming out. Gosh, is it about a month now, right?
Yeah. So the release date is September 21st of 2021. I'm pumped. I am pumped.
This is the capstone on your incredible body of work here, man. And so tell us what the book is. We've already read it, but I don't want to give it away. Like it sounds.
Yeah. So the book is titled Get Different. Yeah. And what I researched was marketing and what makes marketing effective and not. Here's why I wrote this book. And I do believe it may be the most important work I've done with my collection. I had the privilege now of speaking with so many entrepreneurs, from on stage and so forth, pre-COVID, during COVID, even virtually. And I've been asking a question for years now. I'll ask people, I say, what's your most common and most effective way to get leads? And we'll go through a list. Number one, hands down, is client referral. So I'll say, who depends on client referrals? And people, braggadociously, rightfully so, say, 90% of my leads are client referral, or all my leads are from clients. But then I share a word of warning. I'm like, that means you're dependent on your clients to do marketing for you. What if that client goes out of business? Or what if they're not happy with you anymore? You can't throttle the leads. So then I ask people, what do you do beyond that? And for most small businesses, it's like, well, nothing. Someone said ran a Facebook ad and I tried it and it failed. So what I asked myself was, how do we market effectively where we can control the lead flow? What makes marketing work? And I boiled down to what I think is the essence of effective marketing in this book.
Man, well, and so and this seems to me like a perfect progression from your series of things you've shared in your other books, because, in Profit First, you talk about profit being important. Yeah. And then in Fix This Next, you say, hey, without revenue, you're not going to have profit. Well, guess what leads to revenue is customers. Well, how do you get customers? Marketing. Yeah. And so it seems like the perfect combo.
Yeah. Jason, Peter, the only thing your prospects know about you until they do business with you, until they have an experience with you, is your marketing. Like, that's the only thing they know about you. And I even believe it is more than important to serve your business. It is the ultimate act of kindness. You see, I've been interviewing folks about their marketing, and I say, why don't you do it? And they go, I don't want to be invasive. I don't want to bother people. And I asked them, and I said, well, tell me about your product or service. Do you believe in it? I'm like, yeah, it's the best thing out there. It's better than my competition. I respond faster, or higher quality service, or I care more. Most small businesses, the owner's so involved, they care way more than the big business about a successful outcome for their clients. So they provide better service. I'm like, so you love all your clients? Like, yeah, I love my clients. And then the next sentence they say, but I don't want to bother them. I can serve them better. I can care for them, but I don't want them to notice me. And so there's this kind of bipolarism going on in our heads of we are better, but we don't want to bother. And what we need to do is reframe this. We are not bothering prospects. We're actually of disservice if we don't get noticed. Because think about it, if your prospect goes and does business with your competitor and you are better than that competitor in some capacity, now that client is getting an experience that's a lesser experience. It's their problem, but it's your fault for them not noticing you. So marketing is an act of kindness. We need to get out there and put ourselves in front of the client or prospects so they can decide to work with us or not. If they determine that the other choice is better, then they should go that way. But if we don't get noticed, we'll never be of service. So we have to market and we have to frame it that way.
Listen, go ahead, Peter.
Hold on. So I love what you just said, that because I think there is a fundamental thing that I see with small business owners is when it comes to marketing, it's the first thing that goes out and last thing that goes in, right? When they're looking at how they're going.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a connection, I think, that you just made with that, right?
Yeah. Marketing to many clients is a necessary evil. When I say clients, many of the people that I've worked with see it as a necessary evil. Many small businesses see it that way. Like, oh, we have to do this. And when the budget isn't there, or however they determine that, to your point, they cut out marketing, they don't do it. But it is the first experience that clients are going to have with you. So you have to do it. I had a very kind of visceral experience with this myself. When I launched my first book, it was called The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. This is 15 years ago. The response was deafening silence. Like literally the first day, my launch day, I sold 0 books. And to put that in context, my own mother didn't buy a book that day.
Mom, how could you?
I know. I'm like, Mom, what the hell? She's like, well, I was out with your father. We had dinner.
Excuses, right?
Yeah, there was tons of excuses. Yeah. She did buy the next day. But what I learned was that I needed to market. And there was a guy, his name is Yannick Silver. He is, in some context, really the godfather of internet marketing, still out there marketing, but now there's other names that are kind of in that position. But I met with him 15 years ago, and he asked me some questions, kind of as I just shared. He said, is your book the best of you? And I said, at this time, yeah, it's everything I know. For that $25 investment, will it serve your clients better than maybe getting a consultation with a big company for thousands of dollars? I said, yes. He goes, then you have a damn responsibility to start marketing it. And that triggered with me that this is a responsibility and I need to start seeking out ways to do it. But one thing he also shared is that the small businesses like us, Peter, don't need to compete directly with the big competitors on the marketing approach. We can approach in a different way. Yeah, mega company Budweiser, they run the Super Bowl commercials. That is a form of marketing, but it's not what we should do. We should seek out things that are different and unexpected. The foundational thing is this. Look at what your general competition is doing to market to your client base, your prospect base, and whatever they're doing is the one thing you probably don't want to do because it's become habituated. Habituation is a scientific term for basically how our mind operates, that when we see a stimulus, information, the mind, if it's seen it before and knows that's irrelevant, of no value, it disregards it before we even consciously recognize it. Like you could look around your desk right now. There's hundreds of things. I got a calculator here. There's hundreds of things that could draw our attention. But I haven't been considering or even thinking about this calculator, even though it's been in my eyesight. But because if you think about it, if I started looking at it, my mind could just drift and say, well, a calculator, what does that do? Who invented it? What's Casio? And I could go on and on and on for hours. So it would crush any productivity we have. To maintain focus, we actually have to ignore. So our minds are designed to ignore through this thing called habituation. If you've seen it before, it's relevant, ditch it. And that means if your competition is marketing to your prospects in a certain way, we're ignoring it. And if you market to them in the same way, you're not going to get noticed. One little example around this. I don't know if you guys remember getting that first email that started off with, "Hey friend," 10 years ago, or whatever it was. I suspect that first one, you may not remember what was in it, but that first one, you're probably like, oh, what is this? Because I just saw one and I'm like, "Hey friend." I'm like, who is this friend of mine? My friendly friend calling me a friend. Which friend is this friendly friend? Then I read through it. I'm like, this isn't a friend. This is a marketer. Then the next "Hey friend" that came in the next day or probably an hour later, I was like, Is this a marketing message that I don't care about? The third, hey friend, I've never read a hey friend again. Not relevant. The first hey friend email was excellent because that was different. It broke the pattern and got noticed. All the subsequent hey friends have been habituated. We have to be the first of something. And so do something that no one else is doing, and you're guaranteed to get attention.
And that leads into your DAD framework is what you're describing here. So tell the listeners what that stands for, what the acronym stands for, and the steps involved. Okay.
So there's three elements to making your marketing successful. The first one I started to delve into is to differentiate. Unexpected guarantees people's attention. So if we were having this conversation where we're outside somewhere in Poland, and all
now you're talking on the mountain,
on the mountain, and all of a sudden something squiggles in the ground. We would all jump back because our mind now goes, what is this? It's unexpected in that environment. It could be a snake. Someone turned on the hose. It could be a bratwurst. Who knows what it is?
Bratwurst?
Which wouldn't be in Poland, I guess.
But Polish sausage, not bratwurst.
Yeah, Polish sausage. It's probably Polish sausage, yeah. Well, maybe it is a bratwurst, and that's totally strange. Like the Germans are invading with bratwurst. But it's something that's unexpected, and we will have to pay attention to it. So for our marketing, we must do something different. There's a common environment, and there's expectations that we have in that environment. We expect emails to be coming in and have hey friend and these subject lines that we're already familiar with, and we're going to ignore it. So what can you do that changes that up? The second part of the DAT framework is it must be also attractive. And that's where I'd argue the hey friend emails have failed. Attractive is something that speaks to the community, the prospect you have, in some capacity where they feel compelled to stay engaged. Does it serve a problem or need they have? Does it invoke curiosity? Does it entertain them? What does it do that keeps them engaged? That's the attractor factor. Then the third and final element is a direct. We must tell the prospect what specifically to do now that they have this information. So we caught their attention with being different. We kept them compelled by being attractive, but now we need to tell them what to do. It needs to be specific, but it also needs to be reasonable. The unreasonable ask is like, say you're looking to buy a car or something, and I'm the car salesperson. You walk in, I'm like, hey guys, give me $100,000 right now. We're going to find you your dream car. You'd be like, who are you? Like, no way. That's such an unreasonable ask. What would be more reasonable if you came into the lot and I said, would you be willing to share your cell number? I can take pictures of our inventory here, plus other locations, and text it over to see if your dream car is in the mix. That's a reasonable ask. And I'm also moving toward the final transaction, which is the sale itself. Any marketing you look at, if it doesn't pass the DAD test, it is destined to fail, to fizzle out. So you can look at your competitors' marketing, you can look at your own marketing. It's got to pass the DAD test. If it does have those three elements, you stage yourself for the highest degree of success.
So, and you've worked with a lot of businesses, you've consulted, you've had a lot of discussions around this. Out of those three elements, do you see businesses dropping the ball in one area more than others?
Yes. The differentiate, people drop all the time. They actually follow industry best practices. And industry best practices are great for certain things like efficiency in your operations, recruiting employees. There may be some great stuff there. But when it comes to marketing, that's the one thing not to do because that's the industry saturating your prospect base. There's also this thing that we are really afraid. The human race is very afraid of being different. And this goes back to the caveman days. But basically back then we were in tight tribes and my survival depended on your survival and vice versa. So we'd have to work collectively as a tribe. If I did something that would cause me to be banished from the tribe, if I stood out, if I challenged the tribe, if I do anything that banishes me, I am thrown out of the tribe and I'm dead because now I'm by myself out in a tundra trying to do everything and I can't. So belonging to a tribe was and still is, because we're still wired this way, to be extremely important. Here's the crazy thing. In modern times, you don't get kicked out of a tribe and are at risk. You will be kicked out, but you won't be put at risk. So if I'm in school and I'm the jock in the high school, and one day I start going all like geeky and I start, wearing the tape and the glasses and so forth, the jock tribe may kick me out, but I'll be accepted by the new tribe, the geek tribe. Well, that's true in our marketing. When we do something We may get rejected by certain people, repel them, but will be attractive to others. We just have to overcome this wiring that we want to get noticed without being noticeable. We want to be different without differentiating. We want to stand out without having to stand out. And that is the biggest challenge. So many of us, just because it's our wiring, we say, well, that's not me. I can't do this. And we meekly go back down and do the best practice of the industry, and therefore struggle to get noticed.
Well, as you were saying that, as I was reading this part in the book, this fear element really, it hit me, because I remember at different points in my life wanting to do marketing, and I was afraid of either one, what if it actually succeeds? And number two, what if I make a video on Facebook and like 2 people view it and 2 people like it? And so it's also the fear of being different, but also not having it work and trying something new and being embarrassed and humiliated over it as well.
Totally. And I face that all the time. So I've been working the system for myself now for years, and tweaking and improving it. That fear never goes away, but it can be modified. It can be reduced. So what happens is a fear trigger kicks off, and then I backfill with logic. So I create a video that's really outrageous and different. I actually did one for the promotion of this book. And to your point, 2 people may view it. Now that third person that may be interested in me notices that video, only 2 people viewed it. Clearly, this guy sucks. I'm out. And that's the risk that I'm running. But what I do is I flip fear on itself. I say, if I don't put that video out, I'm not being noticed by anybody. I got to do this regularly, and I have to do it in a form of experiments. Most marketing lessons are about marketing plans. What's your marketing plan? I've discovered that that's actually a bad choice of words, because a plan means this is what I'm committed to. This is the way we're going. In the book, I deliberately call them marketing experiments. An experiment, we grew up, in high school or grade school, whatever, doing these little chemistry experiments. Experiments are there's expected failure. We're just trying to find something that works. So we're just trying something out. So what we do with the Get Different process is little marketing experiments. See if it works on a small scale. And if it fails, great. That's a way not to do it. Let's try something new. So let's do it with as little time as possible, as little money as possible. I just ran an experiment. This is a cool one I did about a month or 2 ago. I started, and now this one caught on. So I'm doing it regularly. I've been actively sharing it too, even though I think you're going to, as I share this with you, you'll find it pretty unique. I've shared it with quite a few folks. I'm shocked that none have done it, but I'm also not shocked, because even though it's so simple and so cheap and it's proving to be effective, it is different. And that internal wiring of fear prevents us from doing it. So let me explain what it is. I was on a flight about 2-3 months ago, going to an event to speak. And I had my phone, wherever I got it now, but I was on my phone as I was in the airport. I was trying to get the Wi-Fi, and I noticed there's the Wi-Fi for the airport, but there was also these hot spots and different things popping up of phones nearby. One guy had a cutesy one, and it said the CIA. I'm like, oh, that's pretty funny. When I'm on the plane, I noticed everyone's trying to hop on the Wi-Fi again. I was like, oh my gosh, when people try to hop on the Wi-Fi, why don't I have a Wi-Fi access point? Why don't I have that hotspot? So I bought a wireless access point. It was $25. It's a little itty bitty thing. It fits in my backpack. I got a battery as a gift that you use to charge phones. It plugs into the Wi-Fi. And I changed the Wi-Fi name for the network name to be Buy Get Different on Amazon. Like the direct I want. So now I sit at the airport. I got my Wi-Fi in my backpack. People are seeing it. When I'm on an airplane, people are seeing it. I do turn it off when they say turn off your access points and stuff. And when I go to a speaking event, I'll go to the AV booth and I'll put it down there and say, hey, can I leave my bag here for the day? I'm speaking later on. And they're like, yeah, no problem. Now I'm broadcasting to the group. And you see attendees walking in and they're hopping on their phone. I've had people come up to me now with some regularity. Some guy actually posted on Facebook. He said, Mike, you wouldn't believe this. This entire conference, they're marketing your book on the Wi-Fi system. I'm like, they are? No, that's amazing. So it's drawing attention. Literally the all-in cost was $25 and that free battery. And it's getting noticed. I'm struggling to know how many book sales it's generating, but at that low cost point, at least I know this experience and getting the feedback, the experiment's working. That's what the little guys like, what we can do that the big companies can't and never will do. And this kind of equals the footing.
Go ahead, Peter.
So I have a question for you, because get different. I get it as far as attracting and marketing.
Yeah.
But there was these marketing rules, right? Then should I be staying within these marketing rules to be different? Like, so if I'm marketing, like this is the famous thing that's happening in the internet marketing world, is like, I just get in front of a Lambo, in front of a big, house, and now I am different, or whatever it is, right? So what, can you elaborate a little bit more on what that means to get different? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Because some people hear get different and are like, oh, you mean be outrageous? Like wear a clown costume and walk around with big floppy shoes and going yaka yaka all the time? No, that's not what it is about. Actually, that's the one thing not to do. It is not about outrageous marketing. And there's, I'm sure, pundits for being crazy. What I'm saying in get different is do what you naturally do, but at a heightened level. It's a greater form of expression of yourself. So if your company is the most professional accounting firm out there, well, what can you do to market to be the most professional? And maybe it's the way you communicate. Maybe you go to all formal letters and you ditch the email marketing like everyone else is doing, and you start direct mailing prospects with extremely formal letters explaining how regimented you are. But conversely, you could be the funniest or the most unique accountant, or in this case, I'm thinking of a computer technician. I used to have a computer company, and we did all the standard marketing. Back then it was direct mailings and so forth. And we did moderately, it was moderately to marginally successful. But one company came in and kicked my ass. It was called Geek Squad. And if you remember this company, Geek Squad, all they did was they dressed differently. Their marketing was really the performance of the technicians themselves. They got the glasses with the thin tie, the pulled up pants, the flood pants, and they were noticeable. Now, they sold to Best Buy, ultimately got $1 billion valuation, where my little company, I was lucky to get a small exit from it that I'm happy I got an exit, but it was no Geek Squad. The more common and the more boring the industry, and this is a quote, by the way, from Robert Stevens, the founder of Geek Squad, the more boring the industry, the greater the opportunity there is to differentiate yourself in marketing. Just be more expressive of who you are. So you can stay in the confines. They were still computer guys. They just wore, and I wore a uniform. It was a suit that was 2 sizes too big. I looked like a freaking scarecrow, to be honest. The scarecrow suit, which many computer guys do. They just changed the uniform in a unique way, a different way, and they dominated.
Love that.
When I first was reading the book, I thought it meant outrageous. And I started thinking of hey, I need to jump out of a plane and have like a life in air, like flag behind me going as I'm plummeting to the earth. Until I read
I think
later,
you should do that. Yes. I think for you specifically.
Please have a parachute. Please have a parachute.
Yeah. And also then I read later, it's like, hey, what you're saying is it take something that makes you unique or something that is an amplification of what you're already doing, or it doesn't have to be a genius idea, doesn't have to be, and you talk about some of the ways to and you give some great examples of iterations of different people that have used this strategy. And so this also to me feels like we have, number one, a fear of standing out, but number two, people, I think we are habituated to thinking certain ways about marketing. And so I think our creativity sometimes struggles, like how do we be different? And it also seems like we have to accept the fact that different, if it actually is effective, other people will start copying. And then the next iteration of that has to come, because now what was different is no longer different at some point. Is that true?
That's exactly true. So I'll address both those points in reverse order. So the second point you made is about the idea of people copying. Once you come up with something different, copying it, and they absolutely will. So the goal here is when you come up with something different and it's working, milk that cow for all it is worth until you can't milk it anymore. It's actually, I'm doing it right now over my right shoulder here, that tree with my books displayed there. This was based upon Get Different experiments. What I noticed is my contemporaries were all other authors had a bookshelf displaying their books, and it made sense. But since everyone's doing that, a standard bookshelf displaying their books, it's defeating the attention. It's become habituated. So then I was asking myself, what can I do that's different, but still displays the books? So I still say within the confines, the rules of having a bookshelf, but I did it in a way that it draws attention. Like, oh, that's kind of cool. You have a tree behind you. And I validate it when I do virtual presentations. Chats are amazing because people will share what they're thinking. And I just had this one chat where people are like, what's that weird bookshelf behind the guy? That's kind of cool. What are those books? Oh my gosh. And one person's like, I got one of his books, Profit First. Like, oh my gosh. And there was a conversation about it. So that's a validation that it works. At a certain point, everyone's going to start doing, different or unique bookshelves. And that's when that's done. But right now I'm milking it for all it's worth. The first point you made is, where do we come up with different ideas? And there's a real simple technique. It's called R&D, and it stands for rip off and duplicate. Basically, look outside your industry. That's the key. Mm-hmm. See what's successfully working for them. Take those ideas and be the first to deploy it in your industry. Example, as I was an author, my second book came out. It's called The Pumpkin Plan. I wanted to boost sales. I'm at a cleaning conference. They make cleaning products for carpets and all these different things to be a presenter, but I'm also listening as a guest for a period of time. One person goes up there. He's like, if you make a cleaning product, when people are at the store shelves and they're considering your product, they're going to look at the back, they're going to look at the directions and ingredients or whatever. He goes, if you put a pre-recorded message on there saying, call this 800 number to hear our pre-recorded message on how this product will serve you, it will increase sales by about 10%. I was like, oh, product on shelf, pre-recorded message with a number for people to call, and that may push them over. Well, back then, my books were being sold a lot through Barnes & Nobles and bookshelves. I put an 800 number on the back of The Pumpkin Plan, my second book. And sure enough, sales went bloop, and they popped up a little bit. I no longer have that activated, that number, but if you look at an old copy of The Pumpkin Plan, sure enough, you'll see the number back there. So what can we take from other industries and be the first to deploy it in our industry?
Gotcha. I think of maybe like ballpoint pen technology, and then they use roll-on deodorant, kind of the same. Oh yeah,
principle. Yeah. That's exactly it. I love it.
Yeah.
And that's an innovation, not in marketing necessarily, but that's an innovation in efficiency and, in the product itself. So those opportunities do exist everywhere. We just got to seek them out. So the key here is just get outside your industry. If you're only looking at your industry, you're in that tight concentric circle. Break out and look what other people are doing.
What can you give us as far as recommendations when we're doing these experiments and we want to assess whether or not this is working? What kind of measurables should we be looking at? How do we know, how have we given it enough time? Is it going to, you mentioned in the book, the woman who kind of got taken advantage of, and so we don't want to spend tons of time and money on something. Like, how do we know if it's working?
Yeah. So we're going to use a technique called keys. I do want to dispel the biggest marketing lie I've seen. And what it is if your marketing isn't working, you haven't done enough of it. That is usually total bullshit. Those Facebook ads aren't working. You got to spend more money. That's why it's not working. That billboard you're running, you don't have enough billboards out there. Put more out there. That is a lie unless you have it keyed and you have statistical proof. Now, keying is a term that was created by direct marketing campaigns. Direct marketing in the traditional sense was you mail something, a physical mailing piece to someone, and you ask them to respond. So you try to differentiate, maybe it's lumpy email, so it stands out. You try to be attractive, speak to their desires, and then you give them a direction, call this 800 number or go to this website. In that direct is where the key resides. So, in this podcast, I can say, hey, I'm so appreciate everyone listening in. I got free resources at, mike.com/lifeinair. Now I may go on another podcast and say, hey, everyone, thanks for listening in. I got resources for you at Mike/ the name of this podcast. That's a keying technique. So I can see what traffic is coming from what resource. Now, when it comes to marketing, I simply key, maybe it's call a phone number and dial this extension exclusive to that marketing piece and see how it performs. I'll run other marketing pieces simultaneously, other experiments, but they will have different extensions so I can distinguish it. And you can do this for websites. You can do it for phone numbers. You can do it for live gatherings. If you want to see how a newspaper ad, how it draws people to say a concert or something, say in that newspaper ad, version 1, come to the pavilion at the concert center to pick up your free gift. The other ad could say, come to the gazebo. And the fourth one could say, meet us at the waterfall or whatever. But that's all techniques of keying to see what works. Then once you know what's starting to get traction, those are the things you amplify. The things that aren't working, you either have to abandon or you need to reinvent and tweak. The majority of times, your first stab at marketing, different marketing, won't be successful. It won't be a failure. It'll be like a meh, but there's a learning in that. And you try to improve upon that. Second one, third one, they may all be mehs. But if you keep on observing the metrics, then you'll start tweaking this in and find something that works pretty well for you.
Got it. How does this play into the marketing? And maybe it's a myth, I don't know, you tell me, of like, hey, your prospect needs to see you 15 times before they'll buy from you. Is that because the marketing is not differentiating itself and it's not standing out? Or is that just a truth that like, you just listen, even if it's really unique marketing and you've differentiated yourself, it's still going to take some time for people to warm up to that?
So there's a truth and a lie from what I've studied. That 15th time assumes the customer's seen you 15 times, but wasn't attracted by your message, meaning say, oh, not relevant. And on average at the 15th time or whatever the number is, that time they're like, oh, I need this. And I said, I think I've seen this before. So the truth is a repeated presence will sync up with that attractor factor. You know, I could be selling chlorine for your pool, and your pool looks great and you don't think about it, but on the 15th time or whatever it is, your pool water's turning green. Like, I need chlorine. Oh, this is now very attractive. So there's truth to that. But the lie is that it doesn't take you 15 tries to get noticeable. And that's how people are consuming it, saying, well, they just don't see me the first time, so I'm going to repeat the exact same message over. No. People will see you the first time if you deem to be noticeable, unexpected, and different. But most marketing is simply not noticeable. So you're doing is you're hoping that the customer has such a compelling need. I need chlorine, my water's green, that they're actively looking. And that's when your message hits them. So you're playing a timing game. If you stand out and be different, just realize you may not be attracted in that component at that moment for the purchase of that chlorine, but can you do something? Can you offer something that's compelling at the time? So maybe I send someone, how about this? If I'm a pool company, I'm making this up on the spot. Most pool companies send out postcards. We clean pools. What if I send out two vials of water in the mail to you? One is crystal clear and one is green, and saying, we guarantee your water will look like this year round with our supplies. You may not be ready for it now, but the day's coming. Do you want our sample kit, or do you want a sample report how to maintain your pool? That is noticeable. You know, how many times have you gotten vials of water in the mail? Probably never. So that guarantees attention. But the attractor factor may not be the sale in the moment. It may be something that just keeps them engaged. Seth Godin coined this concept of permission marketing. And that's what we're looking for here, to get the permission of that prospect, now that we have their attention, to stay in contact with them, that when they have the need that we can satisfy, that we're allowed to offer to them at that time because they gave us permission to stay in front of them.
And if you have a pool boy deliver that water, that's even better.
Well, that's what my wife says. If he's ripped and has his shirt off, she's buying anything.
Right. So tell me, because that's something that I've always been concerned with, is like, hey, to the myth you just mentioned, like, well, gosh, we're only on our 5th try of this and it hasn't worked yet. Let's try our 6th or 7th or 8th. And it's like, at what point are we, throwing, I don't know if it's good money after bad money or bad money after good. I don't remember how that phrase goes, but yeah. that's a concern. Like I hear all the time, like, how do I know, like, how early should I be getting results? And that seems really difficult to figure out as far as an expectation. Yeah.
So my argument is the first try, when you're different, the first try will get results. I'm not saying results in converting customers, but the first try will get people taking notice. Now we got to take measurement of that taking notice. So when I do that water vial campaign, I have to make sure that it's attractive, the offering, and the direct is safe enough that they want to be engaged. So saying, buy my pool chemicals, and then no one buys pool chemicals, I'll say, well, this didn't work, that vial campaign. But if I simply say, get our free report that we can email to you to keep your water pure and people having less reactions to it or something like that, it should be a low enough offer. I mean, safe enough offer that someone or people get engaged in it. And so that's what I do. If I don't have it hit in the first one, I am seriously considering, was this different enough? Was it the offer too big? So I'm considering it. And one thing to do too is to then call prospects and say, hey, we sent a mailer out to you and we didn't hear back from you. And that's totally cool. We're not here to sell you anything. We want to know what can we do better in building awareness around our company. And people will respond to that. It's funny. No one wants to be sold to, but everyone wants to give advice. And so one of the greatest sales techniques is not to sell, but to ask that person for advice on how to sell. And people respond to that. My own company, we're pursuing a major organization. And my partner said, I got this. And he was struggling with it. I said to Ron, let me give you one idea that I suspect will work. It's call this company and don't sell them a single thing. Say, I simply want to know how I can sell to companies like yours because I admire your company. I'm not going to sell anything. I just want your advice. The partner of this company called back and said, if you're not selling me anything, I'll talk to you. Because we love to share what we think. And so all of our prospects are that way. Do that to measure. If you have no response to your marketing, call some of these people and say, I want your advice, and you may get some extraordinary support.
Dude, that's brilliant. Like ask if you're basically asking them, what are their pain points? What are the solutions they need for their problems? And they're handing them right over to you. Yeah.
And they may say vials of water. I didn't notice that. Or maybe it got thrown out. Maybe you find out, oh my gosh, these aren't being delivered. The Postal Service does not allow water to be mailed or something. So you're asking questions about each stage too, saying, hey, did you notice that mailing campaign? And I never got it. When you got it, what did you think about it? Not relevant. So you're right. They're giving you the process to sell to them. But here's the key. When you seek advice, don't use that as a sales opportunity in that moment. Don't get that customer, hey, now you told me what to do, buy my shit. That's defensive. Right. They've already rendered something that's of value to you. Say, thank you so much. Asking permission, saying, hey, I'm going to modify our marketing campaign. Would you be willing to receive it again for additional feedback? And if not, great. And as you tweak your marketing too, you will get it so good based upon this customer's direction. They may say, this is exactly what I want and buy from you. They'll make that decision.
You mentioned in the call, basically the call to action, the last D, the direct.
Yeah.
You mentioned relevance. Well, you mentioned, I'm sorry, what's the word you used? Reasonable.
Yeah.
So to explain that a little bit, and does that play into the typical, quote unquote sales funnel approach where, hey, we're just going to start off with a small ask and then a larger ask and then a larger ask until we get to the ultimate win?
Yes, it does play into that, but there's some kind of parameters around it. So the goal of all marketing is to get to the transaction, the ultimate transaction, which is the sale. That is the goal of marketing. So some people say, why market to build awareness? Well, why are you building awareness? So that people will come to me. Why do you want people coming to you? So they buy from me. Okay, so your marketing is trying to get to that transaction. That's our goal. Our job on the sales side is to get to that transaction as efficiently as possible, as quickly as possible. For the customer side, it's to get that transaction as safely as possible. So our job is to bring this balance of making sure it's safe for them, that they feel comfortable in the next stage, and that we are moving quickly forward. So a sales funnel, this plays into a sales funnel. You market, you get the message out, you try a transaction. Now, I'm not saying ask minimally though. I'm saying actually ask maximally until the customer hits a level of discomfort where they're like, I'm out. We don't want to be there. So we're trying find this balance. So when it comes to selling a car, for example, you guys come to the lot. I'm like, hey, give me $100,000. That's way too big of an ask. I could say, hey, thanks for coming here. Here's my business card. If you want to come back, great. All I'm doing is asking you to physically take a card. Now I have no control over this. I may never hear from you again. If you call back and say, hey, we're interested in the card, say, wonderful. If you want, could I email you my contact information again so you have my direct line? Like now I'm moving so slowly, I'm actually hurting the transaction. So the goal is to get there as quickly as possible. One of the things when it comes to marketing too is to ask people's time frame. If it comes to buying a car, saying, I love you're looking for a car, I'll get you some inventory, but let me ask you the time frame you're looking to buy a car. Now, here's the key. You also have to have a justification. You'll hear car dealers say that, like, oh, when are you buying a car? And then the customer thinks, oh, you're just trying to sell me harder. What you need to say is, tell me when you're looking to buy a car because that's the justifier, because inventory is always changing. New models are coming out. If you're looking for a while out, we may want to consider new models that are coming out and not the current one. If you're looking for an immediate purchase, we may want to look at where the inventory is saturated because you'll get a better price. If I give you the justifier, then we're willing to disclose that information and we can pace our marketing accordingly.
Yeah, wow. I love that, man. Those are some great points, man. So you shared some really awesome tips on this podcast, man. I really appreciate it. So my question to you is, who should be getting this book? And how is this book different than any other marketing book? That what can they expect from it? If
anyone's of Polish descent, you better get this book. Like that's
living on the mountain, right?
Yeah. Rule number one. It's rule number two, if you are a small business owner and you are struggling to contain or control the lead flow yourself, if you can't throttle up, if you can't say tomorrow, I need leads and actually manifest that, you need a good marketing system and the book will support you. So small business owners, and I actually had some marketing departments from larger companies use this too. So if you fall in that space, this book will lay out the framework for making sure your business gets noticed and gets business.
And I know you also have some a resources page for the book as well, so people can get some tools and support that, to follow up with the book purchase itself. Where do you prefer people get the book, from your website by itself or Amazon, or does it matter?
Yeah, I suggest going one spot. It's gogetdifferent.com. Make sure you put gogetdifferent.com. The reason is on that site, there's free resources, including 100 marketing ideas that are different, that will get you immediate attention, and they all cost $0. As an example, one of the tips in there is to do invisible email marketing. Everyone does email marketing, so you can use that medium still, but do it in a different way. And we've been testing this out. You can send a clear font or a white font against a white background. You can't see it. In a small or in a font above that in black text, you simply say, this is an invisible email, drag and highlight over to see your message. And that's what will make it appear.
Dude.
And dude, the response is people are like, holy shit, this is so much fun. This harkens back to when I was a kid and played these games. It's different enough to get attention. That's just one of the 99 other ideas you'll get for free at gogetdifferent.com.
Awesome, man. So go over there, get the book. Life in Air has had challenges with marketing as well. I can't wait to start implementing this stuff and see what happens for us, man. Thanks so much for being on the Life in Air show. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Brothers, thank you so much.
Dude, this episode was awesome, man. I really enjoy speaking with Mike, but and beyond him just being a cool guy, he has some real value to add. And, I agree with him. Like, marketing is probably what I would say the most challenging part of a business, because like, if you don't have customers, you don't have sales, you don't have any profit, you're not going to be eating anything except ramen noodles and tuna fish, like for the foreseeable future. And so I love this framework of getting different. And I also agree with him. Like, I scroll Facebook and I see ads all the time. I just scroll right by it, man. I just don't even, they don't faze me anymore. So you have to get different. You have to stand out.
Right. I mean, think about it. If you really see, we get bombarded with messages every single second of the day. Our brains are probably so run with all the information from all kinds of different things that unless you do get different, it's going to be hard for you to get noticed, and I love how he was talking about borrowing from other industries. I've, learned this a while back it's an amazing strategy because a lot of people now are not using it. Because for some reason, people feel like, okay, I am an accountant. I should stick with this accountant.
Yeah.
Right? He used the Geek Squad. Great example of being different that literally has changed that particular industry. Right? And they actually went with what they were good at. And they just emphasized that they blew up who you are. Like, I'm thinking sitting there, and I'm like, well, Polish Peter, how do I blow it up even more? This whole Polish Peter thing, right?
Maybe
Which I don't think that we want that, right? But
yeah, maybe you could send like kibasis in the mail to people in an envelope.
And what did you say? Kibasis?
Kielbasa.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know how that would work with coaching.
I don't know. Don't do that.
Make that connection. No, but listen, seriously, there's some really good takeaways from this podcast, right? One, emphasize who you really are.
Yeah.
And what I hear behind that, don't try to be someone you're not. because a lot of companies are trying to be something they're not. And by the way, I think that's one of the reasons marketing doesn't work for them. Second thing
they're not authentic. Yep.
Right. They're not authentic, right?
Yeah.
Second thing is like borrow from another industry, something that's working in another industry, because guess what? Your clients, your customers are probably not expecting, or they're not used to that kind of a marketing because they're not in that other industry.
Well, and a couple of things like, so I want to unpack this a little bit. This might be a little bit longer outro than usual, but like, for instance, you embracing you being Polish, that's different, right? That's marketing. And you've even incorporated that, like you call yourself Polish Peter, right? And people know you as Polish Peter. I don't even know if people know your last name because you've marketed that way.
They don't.
Yeah. Quite honestly, it's an example of a success, I think, in being different. And so I think all of us have these things that are unique to ourselves. Like, and I remember having some fear around this. Mike talked about this in the podcast earlier as well, is like, I'm kind of like, I'm a kind of a meathead, right? Like I lift weights and stuff, and I don't want people I'm afraid to kind of sometimes let my personality come out because of like, are people going to like it? Are they going to resonate? Is this going to help the business? Are they going to want to, are they going to want to be around something like that? And so all of us have these little things that we have fear around that we need to overcome. All of us have these creative ideas of ways that we can amplify who we already are. What are our skills? What are our passions? Who are we as a company or as a person? And it doesn't have to be something crazy and huge and insane. Like I don't have to like I said earlier, like I don't have to go skydiving and have a life in air parachute. Although that's kind of a cool idea because
I think you should do it.
Life in air will save you from crashing, right? Boom.
Right. So done. As long as you don't actually
crash,
it's in
the budget. We're going to put it.
That would defeat the purpose, right? But also the other thing I'm hearing is at the next Get Life Getaway event, you're probably going to show up with this ripped shirt, like kind of a ripped shirt. Is that what it is?
Right. Yeah.
No. But those are some really important things to really look at as far as business owners. One other thing that he talked about, which is I think really important, is being reasonable in your ask. I think a lot of marketers, and especially the ones who are struggling with marketing, trying to figure it out, they tend to ask unreasonable ask. Like they ask for sale right off the bat kind of a thing. And it's kind of, shooting themselves in the foot. So when he talks about reasonable ask, when you use the example of like you go to a dealer and, he's going to ask you for $100,000 to give a car, that's an unreasonable ask. People are like, what? Are you crazy? I'm not giving $100,000. Yeah. But if you ask them for a phone number, so you can send them pictures of different cars from the lot, that might be something that you're looking for as they're bringing in the inventory every single week. All right, I can do that. But now there is a connection. You start building rapport. You start, working and talking with this person. And ultimately, it's going to lead to that sale.
Yeah.
I think that's an important aspect there.
That's really important. And I think we didn't talk about this, but people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And how do they get to know you? By finding out who you really are, by being authentic, by your different marketing. They like you if they resonate. And listen, people aren't going to like you or your service, and they're not going to feel like it's a good fit. That's okay. That's not your ideal customer. That's the person you want to do business with. That's not going to be your client of your dreams. And then thirdly, they trust. Well, that's how you build rapport with them. You perform and deliver on the small expectations, and then you build that trust, you build a relationship with them. And then eventually the sale will be the natural result of that if it's a good fit. And so that's a really good point, Peter. Well, listen, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. Go out and get the book. Peter and I have already read it. I'm going to implement this stuff like starting ASAP with Life in Air and other things in my life as well. And so go to gogetdifferent.com for that. And we hope you enjoyed the episode. Leave us a review, leave us a rating, let us know what you got out of it. Also, we'd love to see you over in the Life in Air app. So go on over there. You can go to lifeinair.com to learn more about that and be part of the conversations. Now, until next time, we will see you next week. So go get different right now.